Hello everyone. I'd like to talk about linear inequalities. This should be a review even from 5th or 6th grade, except what we're dealing with is more complex inequalities, compound inequalities. So a brief review, the symbol is less than, this symbol is greater than. Think of this on the number line, okay? If I am going to the left, which this inequality symbol is pointing, like the arrowhead, it is pointing to the left. Whenever I go left, I'm becoming more negative or less than. For this one, it is pointing to the right. As I go to the right, I am becoming greater than. My numbers are becoming larger. The symbols to illustrate this are parentheses or the open circle. You'll be using parentheses in your work. And the reason we use parentheses and square brackets is for interval notation. Here we have less than or equal to and greater than or equal to. It is symbolized by the square brackets or the closed circle. You will use a number line to graph. And the one thing that we need to remember, the only thing that's tricky about inequalities, because they're very similar to equations, is that whenever I multiply or divide by a negative across the inequality, I have to change my inequality symbol to the opposite symbol. So for instance, with the problem that I have here, 2x is less than 4. I would divide both sides by a negative 2. I'm going across the inequality with that negative symbol. Both sides have to have the same thing done to them. So if I divide this side by negative 2, I must divide that. That causes this inequality to become the opposite. The opposite. So what was less than becomes greater than. And then I have x and negative 2. That is an important concept to remember. What I do is I look for automatically, does my coefficient with my variable have a negative symbol? And that lets me know I need to take the opposite inequality symbol. So let's look at some problems so we can talk about concepts of inequalities. For the first one, you're simply going to combine like terms. In doing so, you're going to get x on one side of the inequality symbol and the number on the other side. If you'd like to pause the video and try this, you may. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a series of steps to move my x's from one side of the inequality and my numbers to the other side of the inequality. So I'll say minus 6, minus 6. What I do to one side I have to do to the other. Negative 5x plus 3 is less than 8. And then I will subtract 3 from both sides. Negative 5x is less than 5. Okay, I'm interested in x, only x. I don't want a negative 5x with it. So this is multiplication occurring, therefore I will divide. And if you notice, I'm dividing across the inequality by a negative. That causes the inequality symbol to change. What was less than now becomes greater than. X is greater than a negative 1. To graph, you'll be doing this in my math lab. I'm doing it by hand. Let's see, I'll use red. Okay, so less than or greater than requires parentheses. And this right here is written in standard form. Okay, variable, inequality symbol, number. This is the easiest way to graph your inequality. Having the variable first, inequality symbol, then number. Because the inequality symbol points in the direction that I will be graphing, that I will shade in. So parenthesis, and the inequality symbol is pointing to the right, so I'm going to the right. And this does make sense if I just think about it. X is greater than a negative 1. Does not include negative 1, so that's my parenthesis. And it continues on. Okay, the next two are complex inequalities or compound inequalities. And what you must do is you must break them into two problems. So I'll highlight the first one right here. That's my first problem that I'm going to deal with. And I'll use green to work that. Add 1 to both sides, so 5 is less than x. My inequality symbol isn't written in standard form, so it can be more complicated to visualize, okay, how do I graph that? Here's a trick for rewriting it. Write your variable and your number and put them in the correct sequence. Variable, inequality symbol, number. Now what I do is I look up here and I look at where the point of my inequality symbol is directed. It is pointing to the 5. So whenever I rewrite it here, I'm also going to make it point to the 5. X is greater than or equal to 5. That's one part. The other part is right here. X minus 1 is less than or equal to 8. Add 1 to both sides. X is less than or equal to 9. Those represent my compound inequality. So let's say 0 is here, 5 is here, and 9 is here. So parentheses or square brackets? Parentheses, very good. So parenthesis or square bracket for 5. And what about for 9? Square bracket also? Yes. Less than or equal to for that one. Here I'm saying that x is greater than 5, so my inequality symbol is pointing that way. Here I'm saying that x is less than 9, so I'll put my bracket like this. And then it is the area in between those two brackets. These values, including 5 and including 9, will make this true. If I plug in any other numbers, I will not have a true statement. One other example. Let's break it down into two parts. Anytime in the middle you have your variable plus or minus something, you're going to end up working it two ways. Anytime you have that occurring, you're going to work it two ways. So let's look at this. I will use red for my first one. So 6 is less than x plus 2. Subtract 2 from both sides. 4 is less than x. So I'll rewrite it. X and 4. My inequality is pointing at 4, so I will make it point at 4 over here. So I'm saying x is greater than 4 for that one. And how about purple? I'm going to have x plus 2 is less than or equal to 3. Subtract 2 from both sides. X is less than or equal to negative 1. Nope, 1. And now to graph. So let's say I have 0, 1, 4. Alright, so this says x is greater than 4. So I'm going to have this here. Square bracket, right? Nope. Parenthesis, parenthesis. So there's my parenthesis, and x is greater than 4. So I'll shade in, and it's going this way. These are values greater than 4. See, the inequality symbol is pointing to the right. That's where my line is going. And then I have x is greater or less than or equal to 1. So what kind of bracket? Square bracket. Very good. But it's less than 1. So I'll bring it down here. There's my square bracket. And it's going this way. And there's my graph. So takeaways from this: remember, parentheses go with less than, greater than. Square brackets go with less than or equal to or greater than or equal to. whenever you have to multiply or divide by a negative number across the inequality, it will cause you to use or to have the opposite inequality symbol. And again, for problems of this form, you break it into two parts. Break it into two parts. Continue to watch your videos from the publisher, how to do the homework problems, and good luck with your homework.